Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche organization with your daily video update for August 14th, 2024. Let me begin with a scheduling note. I'm going to be gone for the next 10 days, but some highly qualified colleagues of mine will do the daily updates to make sure you get the crucial intelligence and analysis you need so that you can be effective in your campaigning for a new security and development architecture. We have the critical intelligence and analysis that's needed in this time of multiply connected crises. So be sure that you continue to watch and spread these videos so that increasing numbers of people can be brought into the participation into building a new financial and development system. Now, also today at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, I'll be doing my weekly dialogue with Helga Zepp-LaRouche. There'll be a link to that in the description section. Now, it's clear we've arrived at a moment where NATO is involved in a direct war with Russia, direct military confrontation. There are reports of mercenaries from Poland, France, the United Kingdom, and elsewhere who are reported to be in the Ukrainian special forces that did the incursion into Kursk this last week. And many of them are probably still there inside Russia. The Russian defense minister, Belousov, said that this has become, quote, essentially an armed confrontation between Russia and the collective West, unquote. So this idea of a war against Russia, not just a proxy war, but an actual NATO war against Russia. That's the threshold which we're crossing. And the idea of going after a nuclear power, probably the strongest nuclear power in the world, with this kinds of tactics is probably the definition of insanity. At the same time, in Southwest Asia, you have a massive influx of U.S. forces, especially naval forces, and the continuing promises that the U.S. will defend Israel from any attack. Keep in mind that the Iranian reprisal that is still expected is the result of Israel's assassinations of leading figures, including two leading figures, one of Hezbollah in Beirut, and the other, Ismail Haniyeh of Hamas, who was killed in Tehran. Now the question should be asked, which is more crazy? Netanyahu's continued war crimes against the civilian population of Palestine, or the Biden administration's complicity in those war crimes and the willingness to continue that, even while saying, please be less brutal in your treatment of the Palestinian people? Now, add to this an article that appeared in the London Economist, the magazine of the City of London, on the permanent war policy that they've promoted. The headline is America Prepares for a New Nuclear Arms Race. And it describes the plans for expanding U.S. nuclear forces, but they admit that critics describe these plans as, quote, the madness of modern-day Dr. Strangeloves. Now, for those of you who don't know the reference to Dr. Strangelove, that was a movie from, I believe, the early 1960s by Stanley Kubrick, in which he develops the implications of the mutual and assured destruction doctrine of Henry Kissinger, which is that you get to the point where a global extermination will occur as a result of the triggering of one nuclear bomb. That is, one nuclear explosion triggers a deployment of all military nuclear forces. And it's a very funny satire, but this is what we're facing right now. The idea that we need an escalation of nuclear buildup in the United States, as The Economist reports, indicates the preparations for permanent warfare will continue into the indefinite future. So This is what we're facing in the world today. And the think tanks are very much involved in promoting the ideas that we must attack Russia, must attack China, Iran. And why is that? Well, what we're seeing is the continued motion of the BRICS and the nations of the global south to break from the existing unipolar order to create what some call a multipolar order, what Chas Freeman calls a multinodal order, in which you have nations working together outside of the existing dollar system. The New Development Bank of the BRICS will have a meeting at the end of this month to discuss continued motion toward an alternate financial system. Now, they're moving ahead very slowly for good reason, because they're, on the one hand, afraid of provoking a reaction from the Anglo-Americans, but also this is a big undertaking. If you're going to replace the dollar, you need to have something in place that will actually allow for an improvement over the present system. So the question they're debating is whether or not they can really break with the City of London, Wall Street speculative casino economy. And there are ongoing talks of how to do this, especially to increase the investment into major projects of physical economic development, like the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, their goal is the sovereign economic development of all nations, and that's the proper goal. The question is, can you move outside of the City of London and Wall Street to accomplish that? What we're dealing with is the legacy of an event which took place 53 years ago tomorrow. That is on August 15th, 1971, when Richard Nixon, under pressure from a collapsing dollar, from growing indebtedness, and from advisors, including Paul Volcker, George Shultz, and Henry Kissinger, and also Arthur Burns, they told him, you have to break with the Bretton Woods system and the fixed exchange rate system in which the dollar is ultimately backed by your gold reserves. And on August 15th, 1971, Nixon went ahead with that. And Lyndon LaRouche warned that this would unleash a speculative economy that would take down the existing declining industrial economy. And what we've seen now is an arc of more than 50 years, a half century of the emergence of this neo-imperial model, which involves looting of poorer countries of their raw materials and their people. It includes deindustrialization. It includes speculators making billions from trading financial instruments, while the vast majority in the world is in danger of losing everything and struggling for day-to-day existence. And to protect the system, they are prepared to go to war. And they are going to war, and they have gone to war. Regime change wars, assassinations, unleashing of revolutions, and so on. That's been the policy of the Anglo-American oligarchy. And that's the policy today of that oligarchy. And that's what we're organizing to defeat. So we have the International Peace Coalition moving. We're trying to put together a Council of Reason. And we have to have your participation, because the more of you that get involved, the quicker we can put this system to rest. As I said, I'll have the link to the webcast tomorrow in the description section. I also will include an article by Lyndon LaRouche on what was done to break with the International Monetary Fund system, the fight that he led over the last 50 years. And I encourage you to use this material to develop your own critical understanding of economics and history and the current strategic situation. So, as I said, I'll be back in 10 days. I'll see you then.
The big question, what can we do about it? If we have the power to to influence the course of history as individuals, then each of us has a corresponding moral responsibility to muster from within ourselves those capacities which enable us to do our part in shaping the course of civilization. Now, under that rubric, I say, what kind of news is newsworthy? The only news that's worth having is news which performs those functions, which enables government, which enables you as an individual and so forth, better to understand what is happening to this planet, to understand what the developments are that are shaping the course of history, and finally to indicate to you the facts which you need to look at so that you can judge what it is that you might be able to do which can contribute to bringing about a solution, an escape from the collapse of civilization. This is no pipe dream, this is no fantasy, this is real.